first things first, I've got my pan on here, and I'm just going to put this onto a low to medium heat first of all. Now the things we're going to be using is tinned tomatoes, we've got some garlic, and then we've also got some basil. Because those two, best of friends, absolutely love each other. So, go really, really well together. So we're going to be using some basil as well. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my garlic. Now when you're preparing garlic, don't be faffing about with those garlic presses, things like that. You spend loads of time picking out the little holes and stuff when you're trying to clean them. Just get your garlic and it's got a little woody end on there, yeah? Well, you can see that. Our friends on Instagram and on FaceSpace there as well. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're just going to chop that off. So you're going to take your knife and you're just going to take off the woody end like so. And then we're going to press down using the knife. Be careful when you do this. Don't do what they do on the TV and smash down. You'll end up cutting yourself. Just press it until it clicks, and then the skin will just peel away like so. Really simple. And then we're just going to slice it up. So we're using our rock chop here. We're going to do some videos in the future about your knife skills as well. Turn that. And then if you want to get a little bit finer, all we do is we adapt another technique called the cross chop. And we'll just go across like so. However, for today's video, the sauce that I'm actually going to be making, I'm going to be blitzing down, so I can just roughly chop this up. It doesn't have to be fine. We'll come on to that later, of how you can make it nice and smooth, this sauce. However, in an ideal world, like I say, if you haven't got that, you can use all sorts of techniques like mashers and all sorts, but we'll come on to that. So I've got my garlic done, and I'm just going to measure out a tablespoon of olive oil into my pan. So my pan's been warming through, there's been no oil in there. So a tablespoon of olive oil. Try and get into the habit where possible of measuring out your oil rather than just free pouring it from the bottle, because obviously if you measure now you've got more control, you're less likely to use more oil. And if your pan's warmed through slightly, it's going to coat the bottom of the pan. Nice and easy, okay? So we've got our oil in there, and then into there I'm just going to add my garlic, like so. And in Blue Peter style, for those who watched our soda bread video, there's some garlic I prepared earlier. So we've got 2 cloves of garlic in there. And there's nothing better than the smell of garlic, I think. Now, when you come to cook your garlic, just be careful. Add your oil in and just add a little touch of garlic in first. That way, if your pan's too hot, it's only going to burn a little bit of it. You can take it out with a spoon. Don't tip it all in, because if it all burns, garlic becomes really bitter and it's not particularly nice. So, get that in the oil. We're going to give it a little stir around. There you go, Facebook, Insta. Give it a stir around. And just keep an eye on that. You don't want it too hot, you just want it to slightly go golden. And it smells amazing already. Now, we're going to take our basil. And this is just shop bought basil. I basically give it a rinse. You've got a little elastic band on there, we're going to take that off. Now what tends to happen is in the chefy world, of all the restaurants, what have you, we always get these lovely little leaves and we'll pick them off and we use them as garnish and they look really nice on dishes. But we neglect this part of the basil. And this pot is full of flavour, okay? So when they've been washed, let's just chop them up. So we use our rock chop. Chop through like so. And we'll use the leaves later on. We can use them in salads, things like that as well. But we're going to use the stalks because it's going to add another level of flavour. Nice and simple. So we'll get the stalks in as well. And give that a little mix round. So as the garlic and the basil's just sort of simmering away, cooking, getting a little bit of colour into it, we can now start to talk about our tomatoes. As I say, if you've got a glut of fresh tomatoes, well maybe they're starting to go a little bit, you know, sort of wrinkled up, shriveled up or whatever, basically chop them all up. You can add them in instead of the tinned tomatoes. And you can also add a little splash of water in as well. I'm not a big fan of adding unnecessary sugar. Some people say you should add sugar to your tomato sauce and that. Don't bother with that, yeah? We're going to get a lovely intense flavour of tomatoes here, okay? So we're using tinned chopped tomatoes. Just take the lids off. Good fun this, isn't it? Good way of spending a Friday. So, lids off. Now these, as I say, are tinned chopped tomatoes. personally speaking, where possible, try and use plum tomatoes, okay? Now go for the whole plum tomatoes, and the reason for that is whole plum tomatoes in a tin tend to come from the same variety of tomatoes, so they're more intense in flavour. Chopped tomatoes can be a little bit of this and a little bit of that, yeah? So go for the plum whole ones. When you cook them, they're going to break down anyway, so if you're making chilli or something like that, just cook them, break them down with a spoon or a masher, absolutely perfectly fine, but more intense in flavour. Don't cost any more neither. But if you're going to go into making tomato sauces, go for the best quality tomatoes that you can afford, okay? Because it will pay dividends in terms of the flavour. So we've got our garlic and our basil just simmering away, and it smells fantastic, and Georgina will testify for from behind the camera as well, because it's wafting down that way. So as that starts to go a little bit golden, the next thing we'll do is we'll add in our tomatoes to the pan. Now, when we get the tomatoes in, we're going to add a little bit of seasoning, so a little bit of salt and pepper. And then you're going to leave the lid off on a low sort of medium heat, just to simmer away for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now what happens is, the heat, it's going to sort of help to evaporate, and it's going to thicken up. You're going to get quite a nice thick sauce, okay? If you put a lid on it, keep all the moisture in, that's going to keep it nice and wet, the sauce, yeah? But you can get it the consistency you like, because as it thickens up after about 15 minutes, you can just add a little splash of water in when you come to blend it down, okay? So that's nice and straightforward. Now, I want to talk, it's half term at the moment, and obviously if you're off with the kids or you're homeschooling, things like that, it's really, really important that we try to get as much vitamins and nutrients into our kids, into all of us really, adults, relatives, etc. Try and get nutrients, vitamins in. So if you want to really make this and take it to the next level, try adding in things. So at this stage when we've got the garlic and the basil, you could be putting in things like some chopped courgette, some carrots, you could be putting in some butternut squash, some celery. So chop all that up fine and cook that for a little bit. Let it release its natural sugars, get a little bit of colour in, and then you'd add the tin tomatoes in. It's very difficult, I think, personally speaking, to try and get children to eat things like celery and stuff on its own, so it's a nice way of hiding veg as well into the sauce. So you can basically put all that veg in, cook it, add in your tin tomatoes, a splash of water, cook it until the carrots or the butternut squash are soft, and then when you blend it down, you've got a lovely full-bodied tomato sauce, but it's packed full of vegetables, and the kids won't even know. Just make sure you're checking for allergens as well, of course. So that's a really nice way to get extra veg into your diet, by making that sauce packed full of vegetables. But if you're in a hurry and you just want a nice tomato sauce, garlic, basil stalks, tin tomatoes. Okay, so as you can see now, we're getting those nice and golden. We're just going to add in our tinned tomatoes. So those who watched it last time, I hope you've been having a go at your soda bread as well. It's such a simple recipe, really, really tasty. I know a couple of the guys here have made it at home. Okay, so in with the tomato sauce, the tin tomato, sorry, like so. Just going to get a little bit of salt. Again, be careful on the salt. Now, because you're going to be using this as a base sauce recipe, in actual fact, you could leave the salt out and then just season the dish when you make the actual dish with the sauce. But for the interest of getting a nice balance on this one, I'm just going to add in a bit of salt and pepper and give it a stir around. Okay. So basically, that is your tomato sauce base. We're just going to let that cook 15 minutes or so. And as I say, sort of medium heat, it's just going to thicken up really, really nice. A couple of little handy tips for you here. If you really want to bring out the best of the tomatoes, it's nice to add a little bit of acidity. So think about things like balsamic vinegar. We know balsamic goes really well with tomatoes. So you could literally get some balsamic vinegar and just add in a teaspoon. Or, a favourite of mine is a little bit of red wine vinegar as well. That's a nice thing to add in. So a splash of that. And acidity really, really brings out the flavour and works really, really well with tomatoes. And try it in dishes next time you make a chilli or next time you make a spaghetti bolognese or something. Add a little bit of red wine vinegar. It makes all the difference. Trust us. So our sauce is cooking. Now, obviously you're not going to stand around and sit here for the next 20 minutes watching that cook. So I have prepared one earlier. But what I will say is when it thickens up, when you come to do it, Just add a splash of water. You can have it as it is, chunky and rustic. There'd be nothing wrong with that. It'd be nice over a nice chicken breast or something. You could add in some olives or some capers, okay? But if you're just going to make a base recipe and you want to get a nice smooth sauce, yeah? When it's cooled down, when it's cooked, take it off, put it on top of a tea towel, pour it into a bowl, get a stick blender right to the bottom and pulse it. And then eventually you can slightly tip the pan and basically you're going to get a lovely smooth sauce, okay? If you haven't got a stick blender, but you've got liquidizer or one of those NutriBullets or other blenders are available, pour it in there. When it's cooled down, blitz it up, you'll get a nice smooth sauce. Oh, there's been times even when I've reached for a potato masher. Just give it a good mash and get all the lumps out. But there's nothing wrong with it the way it is, nice and rustic. So you've cooked it, let it cool down, you've blitzed it up, and then you're left with a lovely sauce, yeah? If you've made a batch of this, it's a great thing for freezing. So what I recommend you do is, you get your sauce, and look how lovely that is, yeah? So this is one I made earlier on. You get your sauce and you put it into sandwich bags. Now all I did with that is I got my sandwich bag, get yourself a jug like so, pop it on like that, and then just ladle your sauce in to the sandwich bags, okay? And then as I say, you're left with that, and then you can lie it flat in the freezer. It'll freeze. Keep it for about a month. Make sure you label on what's on there, any allergens, things like that. Lie it flat and you can stack a few of them up. And then it comes to a Friday and you think, oh, let's have pizzas or something tonight. Take it out of the freezer, put it in the fridge. By the time you get home, it's defrosted and you can use it as a pizza topping or something like that, okay? So that's a nice little versatile way of doing it. A few other little things you can add in is, if you like a bit of spice in your life, add a little dash of a chili sauce like Tabasco or something like that, or a little sprinkle of cayenne pepper. Or when you're cooking it, get yourself a chili, get yourself a knife, just prick a few little holes in the chili, pop that into the tomato sauce, and as it's cooking, it's going to release a little bit of the heat as well. So that's a nice thing. I believe the Italians call it arrabbiata, okay? Or as us Geordies call it, arrabbiata, right? So it's a nice thing to do to add a little bit of heat as well, okay? At the end, you could tear in some basil leaves or some nice dried herbs. So this is a mixed herb. It's got like oregano, it's got basil in there. So that's a really nice thing. You could add that into the sauce as well. So it's a very, very versatile tomato-based sauce. So you've cooked it, you've cooled it down, you've popped it in your sandwich bags, in the freezer. Well, when you've got that, what can I make with it, Chris? Well, Georgina, I'm glad you've asked that question, right? Because I've got a little list here of some of the things I like to make with the tomato sauce, okay? Lasagna, you can use it in lasagnas. Meatballs, so you can fry up some meatballs, put your sauce over the top, heat it through so it's piping hot, absolutely delicious, serve it with some spaghetti. You could use it in chili, especially if you've added some chili or cayenne pepper in, or chili powder. Shepherd's pies, cottage pies, tomato pasta dishes. So a simple one, if you've packed it full of vegetables, a simple quick lunch for the kids or whatever, you've got that out in the fridge, pour it over some nice pasta, piping hot. You've got, obviously let it cool down for the kids, but make sure it's cooked through, and you've got a lovely simple tomato pasta packed full of vegetables. So yes, spaghetti sauce. How about serving it over some fish? So you could steam some fish, or you could roast some fish, add in some olives, some capers, use it as a nice sort of sauce for your fish as well. One of my personal favourites I love doing with this sauce is Mexican breakfast. So if you basically cook it off, you can add in some peppers, crack some eggs in, so you've got a nice big pan, crack some eggs in, put the lid on, so they almost poach through, yeah? And you've got Mexican breakfast, stuffed peppers, so you could add in rice, etc. Pizza toppings. How about adding in a handful of pasta and some chopped up vegetables, and you've got like a kind of minestrone soup, add a little bit of stock to water it down. Casseroles, pasta bakes, an alternative to ketchup. When this thickens up, it's really nice as sort of alternative ketchup. Add in stews. So yeah, it's quite exhaustive really. There's a lot you can add there. Any questions, Georgina?
We have got a suggestion here from Julie that says a savoury pancake topping.
I like it.
That's
So Julie says a savoury pancake topping. That's a really, really good one. We did pancakes with Holbeck together, and it was such fun on Tuesday. But thanks for that, Julie. Yeah, that'd be lovely. So ham, cheese, and then the sauce on the top of the pancakes, maybe. That would be really nice. So fantastic. Lots of ideas there for you guys. This sauce is going to cook down. I'm going to blitz it down, and I'm going to be left with a lovely sauce that I can pop in the freezer, split it into sandwich bags, portion it up, and then when I want to get home after work and I want something nice and simple, I've got a load of things I can make with a simple tomato sauce. I think that's it. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, guys. A really simple tomato-based sauce. Lots of hints and tips how you can take it to another level with chili, with different spices, different herbs, etc. Very versatile, freezable, and ideal when you've got a glut of fresh tomatoes or just tinned tomatoes as well. Have a go at it. If you've enjoyed it, drop a comment, give it a thumbs up. Check out our YouTube channel. There's lots of videos, lots of recipe ideas on there. Thank you ever so much for watching.